Welcome everyone to an episode of the Ol'Timers comic book show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Joining me this time around for a show of which we all must have been sat out in the sun just a little bit too long is the Professor. He's the one to blame for this, by the way.
Yep.
Hey, Professor, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, Johnny. How are you? Any complaints can come to my Twitter.
Yeah. And fresh off a Yankees win, we have the 13th Crusader.
What's up?
Yeah, what's up? All right. So we have sat in the sun way too long for this. It's like, did someone go out with sunscreen or what? I have no idea.
Well, it was an idea born, I don't know if it was desperation, but I think it was born of maybe some comic value, a comedy value.
All right, okay.
Of who could find the, I guess, the most obscure hero that had their own book.
But did I do something to offend you or anything like that when you came up with this idea? Or
when haven't you offended me?
Well, as I said when we did the last No Prize, just remember, professors can lose tenure. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if anybody makes it to the end of this podcast, I'm going to tune in.
Excuse me.
I already text messaged the 14th Crusader to stand by.
Yeah. We'll be running the suicide hotline number later on the show, just in case. Right. Okay. So why are we cracking funnies? Well, as the Professor has mentioned, we, as much as we love Batman and Superman and the Justice League and Avengers and Cap and Thor and all those guys, comic books aren't just about the big heroes. There's a whole rack of different things out there. Some have been really, 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 really good. And some are, oh my God, I can't believe I bought this. Mm-hmm. I think this category falls squarely in the, oh my God, I can't believe they brought this out. And why did I pay money for it?
Well, to be honest, this was born out of a conversation we were having of heroes that when we were talking about books like Marvel Premiere or Marvel Spotlight, and books like Marvel and DC it was almost like the very equivalent of throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck and see if anything caught on with a kind of a fan base. And we've seen it even recently with books just 6 or 7 years ago with Mosaic over in Marvel, where he lasted 8 issues and we haven't seen a hair of him since then, right? So that's happened many times over the years from Marvel and DC, and I just thought it would be fun to find some of these obscure heroes, and it was more of torture than anything else, and I apologize for that. But we came up with a few here.
So all right, let's do the usual thing. Before we get into the 3 that we've picked, what were the also-rans for me? Crusader, which was based on a Marvel book based on a figure line, lasted for about 6 issues. Yeah. I was quite Crusader, there's one.
There were a couple of books I remember from DC. One of them I thought was Peter King and Thunderbolt. It actually had some kind of life on him afterwards, just recently, right?
Yeah, he's with Dynamite now. But I had that run. Yeah. Love that. It's such clean art lines. Yes.
Yeah, and there were a couple of others like books that you didn't know really existed, kind of like the Ray. They had Christopher Priest do the Ray, but he actually has new life in what was it, Freedom Fighters or something like that. He was in there, but a lot of the books, I think the ones we ended up picking were like kind of one and dones, right? I mean, they showed up here. They had a few issues or a limited series, and I know my pick appeared 2 other times in Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Then he has not been seen since, and you can tell why. If you read
I read it. Well, do you have an also ran to the one that you picked?
Yeah, off the top of the head on the Marvel side. whatchamacallit, Omega the Unknown and the Human
Oh,
Fly.
mm,
I own both those runs. On the DC side, Gem Son of Saturn was one.
mhm.
That one was that was pretty interesting, I would say.
I mean, some of
Gem
these
Son of
books,
Saturn.
like Peter Cannon, for example, you buy them. I will admit I bought Peter Cannon from a newsagent, so what you guys would call the newsstand, and they were selling. They had some like DC books in, and they had that, and I picked it up. It was only something like 70p or whatever, so I picked it up, and I managed to get a fair chunk of the run. And it was just like something that passed the time, and not something I took too seriously.
Yeah.
Not like the books that you'd go to a comic book store for. But I think there's, to a certain extent, if you like the character, if you like some of the creators that are involved, these are books that are going to have a little bit of a soft spot in your heart.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we picked none of that, and we went with Release of Fear instead.
We dodged some bullets, and yeah, we got hit by
Oh my
these
god,
ones.
bullets dodged.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that's the word. I don't know if dodge is the word.
No, dodgy, maybe.
Damn, where is he when we need him, eh? All right, so without further ado, let's get in this, eh? Let's get
We'll
this
get
party.
my pick done first. So
Yeah.
the reason I picked Comet Man.
Let me just get the stats out the
Oh, yeah.
way.
Go
Right,
ahead.
Comet
go
Man,
ahead.
number 1, February 1987. eBay. You can buy issues 1 to 3 for a whole £10. There you go.
Really?
Yeah.
All
Even
three,
better.
all three together for 10.
Yeah, all 3 together.
Oh,
Go
all right.
collect. Have this as a 9.6, and somebody paid $45 for this.
I want to know who's grading it.
I don't know.
Someone's mom.
Who's getting this
know.
blabbed?
I don't know. I have no idea. Anyway, written by Will Robinson, Mummy, Miguel Ferreira, art by Kelly Jones and Gary Tallock. Sorry. After this, I don't think they want me to get the names right?
Oh yeah, they might
Bill
not.
Oakley's on letters, and it's Dana Grizinunas is on colours. So, as the professor has stated, this is his pick.
Oh yeah.
So go on then. What was it? So, I mean, that is a Bill Sienkiewicz cover as well, by the way.
He did it. Yeah, Bill Sienkiewicz did all the covers to the Comet Man, which is arguably the best highlight of the book, really.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I picked this book, other than obviously the obscureness of it, was the fact that this was Bill Mummy and Miguel Ferrer, 2 actors in Hollywood that decided to create a hero for Marvel, and they actually got 6 issues out of it, which surprised the hell out of me. So I was interested anyway. So I read it and realized that you maybe stay in Hollywood and try to get more acting jobs. Don't try to write anything anymore.
Maybe. Well, this is Bill Mummy before he started on Babylon 5. Babylon 5 wasn't around in 87, was it?
And no, it was not. This is prior to him being on Babylon 5.
Yeah, so basically you've got Bill Mummy hot on the tails of Lost in Space for the last 30 years.
Oh, yeah. Yep. So, and if you Google Miguel Ferrer, you can find out, everybody knows who he is, but a lot of them don't know who he is exactly, because if you Google him, you'll see that he's been in a ton of stuff that everybody knows. Most of the time playing some kind of skeevy villain. But, and he's recently passed away too.
Oh, yes, I know. Oh, yes, it's me. RoboCop dude.
Yeah. See, everybody knows Miguel Ferrer once they see him. Yeah. You don't really just know him much.
He's the guy that snorted the white powder off a certain young lady's accoutrements.
There you go. Yeah, that's how Johnny remembers them.
Yeah, that's it. Accoutrements are always the way. Put fishnets on it, I would have got it the first time.
So, so this book is really kind of a mess all over the place. So Stephen Beckley is a NASA scientist that's in space to study the Halley's Comet, who, if you remember back in the 80s, I think old-timers will remember Halley's Comet coming around back in the 1980s. And so Stephen Beckley is up there to study the comet, ends up getting sucked into the tail of the comet and vaporized, only to be reconstituted moments later in the ship. The ship, because apparently that's what the Halley's Comet is, actually a spaceship, piloted by one humanoid alien with just white skin, wearing a Comet Man outfit, just like Comet Man ends up wearing. They have a brief conversation, and then he's kind of tossed out of the comet, and he realizes that he has superpowers.
As what always happens.
Well, of course. I mean, and I'm willing to suspend my disbelief of him not being vaporized, but
yeah, that bit's realistic.
yeah, we have to buy into that. But the thing that I think was way over the place was just his power set.
Yeah.
As you get through, and you don't find out all of his powers in the first issue, but if you read the whole thing, and I don't expect that you would have read all 6 issues, but his other powers really so obviously he flies like a comet, kind of like a cannonball, right? Like right. He's indestructible when he flies, so that's fine. I expected that power. Other than that, he has telekinesis, which is kind of out of left field, and he can teleport, which kind of wastes the power of him being able to fly. And later on, you find out he has the ability to go into the minds of small animals and make them do what he wants, which I just laughed at that point, because why? He ends up making a raccoon go get him a fish, and I was like, that's very odd. So anyway, the power set is just a mess. His costume is probably the least imaginative costume I think I've ever seen, ever.
Well, I've put in my notes is be careful if you turn into a superhero, you might get a suit like Sin Eater.
Oh, jeez. And the other thing in this book, if you get past the first issue, is that the supporting cast that they introduce, there's nobody that's really likable. Not even Stephen Beckley is not really that likable guy. You don't really identify with him. You don't really kind of see. They don't really get into it too much. You know that he has his wife and his son, who in very short order they kill the wife off like early, and his best friend supposedly is in love with the wife.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. That's Stephen. He's on the make early tours.
Oh yeah, you knew he was going to be the bad guy, but then it turns out he wasn't the bad guy. It was his long lost brother that he didn't know he had, as you do.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. 35-year-old spoiler. And then they really treat the son in this book. They really run him through the ringer as well. He's tortured and then dies at the end, only to come back with powers and get in a huge fight with Comet Man. And then at the end he ends up catatonic. And at the end of the 6th issue, you think Comet Man's dead, along with the alien that gave him his powers, because Halley's comic blows up, and that's the end. That's just like there's no wrap up to the book. It's just like the comet explodes. You think he's dead, and the kid is laying in the bed drooling, catatonic, and looking like E.T. with the stuffed animals. So
he was almost comatose.
He was comatose. He was comatose. He was in it.
Comatose.
So anyway, comatose, as you will all be at the end of the series. So it's terrible, disjointed. I had no desire to even really read to the end, even though I did. And I'm a bit curious. They did have the Fantastic Four was in here for a couple of issues in the middle of the series.
Yeah. It takes on the thing.
It turns out that Stephen and Reed knew each other previously because they were both scientists, so they all know each other. And
that makes a modicum of sense.
Yeah, that's about the only thing that might make a little bit of sense in this whole thing. There was obviously a moment of attempted comic relief where he realizes he can teleport and he teleports into the shower with the She-Hulk, which to me, I mean,
Good
obviously that
choice.
if
Good
yeah,
choice.
yeah, and it was like it was just because someone wanted to draw She-Hulk
Yeah.
half naked. So to me,
Wasn't she always half naked in the 80s?
she would, yeah, but to you know, I'm surprised that this got 6 issues. To be totally completely honest
Oh,
with you.
it's funny because I mean, fair enough. I joke about Bill Mummy, and I suppose he's at this time he's most famous for being Will Robinson in the Lost in Space TV show. Which, when he
Yes.
was describing the story of what the kid goes through, sounds to me like Bill Mummy's using this as a sort of cathartic process by which to get his own traumas of being a child star out of the way. You
Mm,
know, and the fact you've got Miguel Ferrer is always, you're absolutely right, when you look at his body of work, he's always like the shady guy on the side. Where you forget in the RoboCop movie, he might be shady as hell, but he's the guy who helped create RoboCop, and
yeah.
not the big Ed 209s. So there is some redeeming factors in it. So you've got those two kind of like polar elements in there between the two writers. And for me, this book reads like, hey, I really want this really cool kid to do this, and I really want this shady guy to do this. And then the bit in the middle is like, what are we doing now? But
Right.
no. 13th, what do you think of this book?
Well, this book ties into Haley's Comet, right? So
Right?
to answer Bud's question of why we haven't seen him since is because Haley's Comet only comes around every 75, 79 years. So maybe that's
Okay.
how long we'll have to wait for the return of Comet Man.
Mm.
I think even that, I think that's too soon.
We won't be around to cover that. So sorry, folks. Um, apologize ahead of
It'll be
time.
the old timer show.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ancient timers.
Oh,
The
man.
I agree with Bud.
Sounds like a Jack Kirby story.
Yeah, I agree with Bud. I think there is some things that you can salvage from the book, and I really believe that it's on the side of the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I like the cover. It's straight to the point. I
Ah,
like the corner
signature.
box, I think, the most out of the cover.
Well, hang on, let's get back there.
Yeah, I like the corner
Oh
box.
yeah, that's this bit up here. Marvel had a tendency to put the characters front and center in there a little bit. I used to like the X-Men ones, with
Hmm.
the different heads and stuff.
Kind
Yeah,
of
the
gives you the
floating head.
idea that he could shoot like comet blasts out of his hands, and does he
Well, that
ever
would
do
make
that in
more
this book?
sense. That would make more sense than controlling raccoons, for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
but does he do it? He doesn't do it in the book,
Ah,
but it
but
looks like he can on the cover.
it's bad enough you made me read the first issue. You think I'm going back and read another 5?
On the artwork subject of artwork,
Yep.
I wasn't aware that Kelly Jones drew this.
I
So
know.
that took me for a loop right there. I was like, "What, really?" And in saying that and looking through the artwork here, I almost think that it reminds me a lot of Michael Golden's art,
Yes,
particularly around the eyes. So I'm
agreed.
like, so I was looking through the pages and I'm like, this is a lot like Michael Golden, but it's Kelly Jones.
Yeah.
Mm,
So that was like, wow. So that's the only thing that made me read this book from beginning to end was because I was really observing the art.
Uh huh.
And we all know how Kelly Jones's art evolved. Same for Michael
Yep.
Golden.
Yep.
Um, so this reminds me a lot in some panels of the old Michael Golden Micronauts art
Okay.
when he did his facial
Interesting.
expressions. But
Yeah.
as far as the story goes or the plot or what have you, okay. If you want to tie in a story to Haley's Comet, sure. But to make it a spaceship that comes around every 75, 79 years and seeds the galaxy,
mhm.
that doesn't leave me with a good feeling, or nor
Mm.
should it for anyone else. There was an attempt of some sort of a subplot here between Stephen, who wanted to get even, and the wife and all that stuff. But this sounded like it was borrowed from like a bad '80s drama show. You know what I mean? Where there was a
Yeah.
guy that used to be with a girl who married someone that he was cool with, or something like that. But they had a kid, but he wants to get back with her. She's like, I'm not gonna get rid of the ex completely, but we're still
Yeah,
in on speaking terms. But he's in the picture. He talks to my husband. I'm like,
yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, an attempt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Days
Here's this subplot. How can we make it last more than like 6 issues? That was
Correct.
days of our superhero lives.
yeah.
Correct. Now, the spaceship inside of a comet, or saying that the comet was a spaceship, is definitely a reach. You know, and even the part with the alien saying, "Oh, I can speak English," and okay, so you know, there was just some weird things that threw me off a little bit, but you know, you get back with it. You know, I get it.
So
The
let me ask you
yeah.
a question, because I think you brought an interesting point up there, 13th.
Mhm.
This is Kelly Jones, right? And we love Kelly Jones for his work on Red Rain, his work on Batman with Doug Moench,
Yep.
the whole thing. His latest style definitely he owes Michael Wrightson, Bernie Wrightson, sorry, a bit of a paycheck. Which other artists can you think of? And we'll go 13th first, then Professor. Which other artists can you think of that when they started ended up evolving into their heyday? Because I mean, I think people like John Romita Jr. His art now is dramatically different from when he started. When he started, he was just being a Marvel clone. So
give me a minute
13th, yeah. I know.
Yeah, that's a tough question, because you know, we are talking about Kelly Jones, and there's clearly
no
a
Kelly
lot
Jones
of there's a lot of evidence of how his art has evolved,
yeah,
and or how he was given free reign.
uh-huh.
You
Right.
know, especially on the DC side. But this definitely surprised the hell out of me. You know, Michael Golden art also had evolved
Yeah.
to some degree, so there's no doubt about that. But I can't really think of anybody else
Okay. Well, whilst
at
the
the moment, at least.
professor's percolating, do you think
I-
that kid is a self-portrait, right? That is Bill Mummy from Lost in Space.
Yes,
On
yes.
on panel.
That I thought that too. Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Professor, good artist, sorry?
Yeah, I think a lot of it with the evolution of artists from when they started. I think a lot of it has to do with who inks them.
Ooh, that's a shout.
Yeah, because I think that there are like, I thought the first time I saw John Buscema's art, I didn't really look like John Buscema. Same thing with Barry Windsor Smith. The first time I saw Barry Windsor Smith art, I was like, but then when it turned into Barry Windsor Smith, then you definitely see it. Same thing with Gene Colan. I think when he was ghosting as Adam Austin, when he was doing Submariner and Iron Man, I think that looked much different from when he became Gene Colan and doing his own stuff. But also when someone dad inks Gene Colan, it's almost, you can't tell. You can't tell it's Gene Colan.
How about Frank Miller?
Yes, there's a good name. That
there you go.
Good, brilliant shout. Well done. Absolutely. His style now is horrendous compared to how
recognizable.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great call.
Yeah, I actually, I was thinking Todd McFarlane too. When the first time I saw Todd McFarlane, I didn't think. And then he became, when they gave him free reign, like 13.
Yeah, they cut him loose. Yeah,
exactly. I think these artists, they kind of hit a peak, don't they? So, for example, Jim Lee on Punisher isn't the same Jim Lee that's on X-Men.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like a passing thought. Right. Okay. No more surprise questions. Maybe. All right. Okay. So let's have an advert. Where do you want to go? I tell you what. I guarantee you, none of these books will end up here, ever. It's Crisis in the Toyverse.
Oh.
I think we can all say we love that advert, right?
Oh yeah.
Yes, my favorite advert.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, our advert's my favorite advert, but I can't advertise the show for just crazy talk.
Right.
All right. So the winner of the most obscure comic picked goes to none other than the 13th Crusader for this sneaky little gem. I say gem with my sarcasm at Warp 10. This is Triumph number 1 of 4. Yes, this lasted 4 issues. It's from 1995. This book cannot be found on eBay. This book cannot be found on Go Collect. The only person
Really?
to ever buy a copy of this book was 13th Crusader. And he probably bought 13 of the damn things, which is what caused another 3 issues. So thanks, mate. Thanks a lot. This is written
I do
by...
own it, which is funny.
Yeah. Go figure, right?
Yeah, let me go get it slabbed.
So let's say written by Christopher Priest, art by Mike Miller, inks by John Stokes, letters by Chris Iliopoulos. See, I got that one
Yeah,
right.
you got that one.
Yeah. And
You didn't
Lee
think
Luff-
about it. You just spit it out.
Well, yeah, just to say as it is. And Lee Luffridge is on colours. All right. I said no unsolicited questions. 13th, I'm going to put you on the spot. Triumph's first appearance was in what?
I know Justice League 91.
Ooh, close. Justice League 92
Oh.
from September 94.
Actually, that's Justice League America, not of America, but that's when they got rid of the of. That was like a year before this book. I
Yes,
think.
it was. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, why on heaven's good God green earth did you pick this pile?
Because I remember reading about Triumph in the pages of Justice League back in the 90s.
91
And
was that?
yeah. But I just thought like this has like retconning, obscurity, 90s art. It has
Oh,
like everything of that era in just one series. And the thing is with Triumph was they created Mark Waid created this hero
he did.
that was retconned into Justice League history. In other words, this guy was always around, you just never knew about him.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he was one of the founding members of the Justice League. So I thought the idea was like, okay, yeah, right. You're gonna take a character from the 90s and just plug him into history. So
Yeah.
Well,
They
we
did the
worked
same thing
with Jessica Jones.
or they
yeah.
did the same thing with Sentry.
Yep. So what made it even more, I don't know, it just I felt like the idea was just so bad that I had to keep following the trail. And what made it interesting is you learn about all of this with Triumph's background during Zero Hour, where he's considered a time anomaly. And you're like, okay, so that's all explained away that, he was outside of continuity, if you will.
Mhm.
He was displaced, but he's back, and he was a part of the Justice League and a powerful member at that. And in fact, he was pretty bossy and he had an attitude problem. He did not work well with others. So,
The 90s.
yeah, and that was just the basic explanation for that. Eventually, he found his way onto other Justice League teams like Justice League Task Force and stuff. But the same thing kept happening again. He just did not work well with others. He was all about getting the job done no matter who he had to throw in front of him. And that's what rubbed him wrong with the rest of the Justice League. But for Triumph number 1, I remember seeing this at a comic shop, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know Triumph had his own little series, and I remember reading him in the pages of Justice League, so I picked it up. But the cover screams 90s. I
Parades
mean,
90s, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. This is gonna sound bad. Cover your ears, kids. But his, you know what, is misplaced. It's actually like coming out of his belly button.
Well,
So the legs, it almost looks almost too Liefeld for me.
I was thinking Texera.
That yeah, maybe it's a blend of both, but I mean this one has ankles at least.
Yeah.
I was thinking that this was DC's answer to the founding of Image
I
and all
agree
the
with
books,
that.
all the
Yeah.
characters that were coming out. This was just exactly like an Image hero. Then you just said Layfeld, but I
Yeah,
was thinking more like Supreme.
exactly. You
Oh,
took the
that's
words
another
right out of
one.
my mouth.
Oh
Right.
man,
Yeah.
we're on
This
fire
totally
with this.
reminds me of Supreme. And this was the era, as we all know, that a lot of artists were. This was the era of the artists,
Hmm.
and this was had to be a cover that got your attention. If you were a regular Justice League, you'd maybe remember him. But this is it. He's in here. I don't know what to say about the art, to be honest. I think it's very busy in places and not busy enough in others, if that makes sense.
I think it's of its time. I think
Yeah.
the professor's absolutely nailed this one. This is DC thinking, holy hell, we need to do something image like, but we cannot mess up our big characters to do it. Let's throw somebody new to the wolves, and that's what we've got here.
I think the best part of the script, I mean, again, I'm not saying that this is the greatest thing ever written. I'm just trying to salvage some bright spots. And I think the origin of Billy, who really is Triumph as a kid,
Hmm.
I think was probably as powerful as it got,
Yeah.
right? Because that really went deep into Triumph's past, like his childhood and why he is, the way he is.
Hmm.
But later in the book, when it just goes from one extreme to another, traumatic childhood to, okay, I'm basically part of a military operation.
Hmm.
Okay. There's no explanation of in between. There's no explanation of, did he go to school? Did he meet someone? His first job, maybe his another traumatic event.
He's
There
lost
was none of,
love.
yeah, anything like that. It's just straight to the action, if you will. And
Mhm.
I think as far as the art and maybe another strong point of the story was kind of that little jab to Superman. Maybe I'm more powerful than a locomotive,
Yeah.
but I think the double splash page of him stopping the locomotive was a good piece of Triumph art. And the thing is
Um,
that you're not going to find a lot of Triumph art out there, but for a number one issue, I think this is probably a saving, I don't know, saving grace
It
thing.
looks like a giant on top of that train.
Yeah. But as far as like the supporting characters in here, there are times that throughout the script you're kind of lost. You don't know who he's talking to or who's talking to him.
Hmm.
Same for the criminals. The on the train with the criminal underworld and things like that. There were just some subtle hints of like I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. Like the lingo that was used.
mm,
Yeah.
This was not how people spoke in the '90s. You know what I'm saying? I know I grew up in the '90s.
uh-huh.
That's definitely not it. It could have been a little bit better. But anyways, this is where they plug Triumph in. And for a hero, in closing here, for a hero who is supposedly a founding member of the Justice League, I was thoroughly disappointed that no one could come up with a better story than him just doing these
Yeah.
undercover ops and things. You would figure it would be a villain or something is brewing. Um who is, where's that, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Even if he's fighting a mediocre villain, like, oh, he's new on the scene, he's Justice League, or he's been Justice League.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we can trust him. There was none of that here.
Yeah. And yeah, there's yeah.
There was potential here, and I don't think it was fully exploited
Mm.
with
I
the
think
character.
I was gonna say I think the reasons have been exploited by the idea that we're going to buy this and just lap it up. What frustrates me the most about it is I actually genuinely enjoyed Zero Hour. I thought Zero Hour threw up some lovely issues.
I did too.
Uh,
I
the
did too.
Batman one where he works out, where he goes to the broken down mansion, the Detective Comics one where Batgirl's back,
Yeah.
and they start the idea that maybe Bruce and Batgirl had something going on. These are like ideas that would turn up and that have great Mike Manley covers on a lot of them, and
Yeah,
some really clever
Zero
things.
Hour was something where if you read for the readers, you didn't have to follow every thread.
No, no, no,
But
it didn't.
in this case, obviously for both of us, Johnny, we followed everything that had to do with Batman. But this was a thread other than Batman I followed
Hmm.
just to see where it was going to go, and it didn't go anywhere good.
Yeah, true that. True
Yeah,
that. All right, Professor.
So I'm only going to say a couple of things about this book, and then just where it was kind of jarring for me because I did come on this when I saw the cover on a, like I said earlier, it's like an image book. But if you page through a couple of pages, I don't know if it's like page 3 or 4.
Vampire.
But one of the things that that really threw me off is keep going. Is the word bubbles and the boxes have more of like that 90s kind of look to them. Yeah, keep
Okay.
going. There's one page in particular. And you'll know it when I see it. Might be the next page. No, back at the beginning. Oh, this one. Right.
Oh, with
So
the
you see,
very odd side.
yeah, you see the word boxes where they kind of look like they're kind of falling down, like
Yeah.
like falling. But then most of these pages are your traditional panel layouts. There's like there's no like jagged panels. I think there was maybe one, but some of that's like it looks like those bubbles belong in a different like abstract panel layout.
Oh yeah.
So that was a thing that kind of like threw me off a little bit, other than the fact that Priest's writing here is, I think, maybe intentionally a little off, right?
Well,
I've seen Priest's writing before, and I've talked to Priest before, and to me, like all the white people in this book are talking very strangely, using lingo like 13 said that nobody talked using. Like there's a guy in here, Eddie X, that is talking and using the every other word is Holmes. He's calling everybody Holmes, and I'm just like, oh come on, like even in the 90s, I don't think anybody was calling people Holmes.
What I think is funny with that, I've always pictured Christopher Priest as a very technical, thorough explanation type of guy when it comes to certain things like military and things like that.
Oh
But
yeah,
here it doesn't make sense. Like, so yeah, he can write a lot. This was a very, very busy script wise, but I just felt like it didn't flow.
No, it didn't. And now was another thing. And like you said before, like there are word bubbles with nobody speaking, so he's obviously talking via like a headset or something, but you don't know who's talking to him. And it seems like the person that is talking to him changes, right? So it's almost like there's 3 or 4 people talking to him, and you don't know who's who, and that threw me off.
You have to be a machine to understand. That's why the subtitle of this book was called The Machine, not to be confused with Johnny the Machine.
So I was going to say, don't be throwing that at me, because I tell you what, I'm just as lost as you guys with this one.
Not even the machine understands the machine.
Yeah.
Anybody want to trade with me for this series or?
Nope. Nope. You can even pay the postage to the.
I'm gonna quote the person in the bottom right panel.
Bite me. I think I agree. I think this book, it is 90s. The art tries hard. I'm going to be honest, and I'm not a big fan of a lot of Christopher Priest's work. I definitely don't like his current style, where he has like one black box with white text halfway through a page.
A chapter kind of
it's like
changing the scene. He's got to title the scene.
It's like what's that? I mean, that's not just a DC thing. He's done it on all. Like I've seen his DC stuff. I've seen his Dynamite stuff. I mean, I know he's worked with Vampy. He's done Deathstroke.
Yep. He did it. His U.S. Agent series last year. He did the same.
Yep, exactly right.
I like this. The Deathstroke Rebirth he did in the beginning. I thought he was going somewhere good, and then it just kind of let up.
But that's the problem with Deathstroke all over for me.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
You have this character that's when they created Deathstroke, Marv Wolfman and Perez, I think off the top of my head.
Yeah.
He's too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
He uses 90% of his brain, for example.
Yeah.
And even in Identity Crisis, he takes down the Justice League single-handedly. Mm-hmm. So where do you go with that?
Yeah. Well, in the I know this is part of the New Timers comic book show, but Christopher Priest did write the story of Deathstroke taking Superman down.
Yeah. So I mean,
and being successful at it, not killing him. He can't kill him, but he definitely beat him.
But that's the problem with Deathstroke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he goes up against Batman and Deathstroke wins, and Batman wins, and Deathstroke wins, and Batman wins. It's like there has to be some level of parity in the fact that he's stuck in this ambiguity of I'm a bad guy doing good things. It just gets old really quick. So I guess so I'm not a big fan of Priest writing. I And there's nothing in this book that would make me change my mind on that. Yeah, I know early work isn't the same as later work, you know.
This isn't really early work for him. He was writing over at Marvel as Jim Owsley before he ever
Oh, was
did.
he? Oh, I didn't know that. There you go. Cool.
Yeah, he was a writer and editor over at Marvel before he ever went to DC.
Okay, cool. Right, okay. Saving the best to last.
All right, guys, it was good, man.
You can't.
13's voice just went.
Yeah. So he's like, phone's ringing. Yeah, I've got something in the oven. Gotta go. Sorry, can't go for it. So let me ask you a question, guys. Are you ready? You ready for my question?
Sure.
Shoot.
Are you ready for some football?
Oh
yeah! Whoa! Woo! Preseason's back, baby! Woohoo! And of course, the Dolphins won last night, so I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah.
I guess we beat the Patriots.
Yeah, Tua Tagovailoa didn't throw an interception, which was great. Tua Tagovailoa didn't play, but that's by the by. The stat line says he didn't throw an interception. I'm all right with that. So this is my choice, and to be honest, I have been threatening it for quite some time.
This was the perfect time for you to pull this
Yeah,
out.
pretty much.
So.
All right, here we go. So the prize for the most expensive comic book on today's show goes to me. Ray! NFL Super Pro #1. Go collect. Has this down as a $95 book.
Are you kidding me?
Who is paying $95 for this book?
Not me.
I'm like, what? Over here in the UK, you can get this book for £4 off eBay. There you go. It's written by Fabian Nicieza, art by Jose Delbo, inks by Mike DiCarlo, letters by Janice Chan, and colours by Bob Sharon. A couple of names there that are Marvel through and through.
That price you rolled out, is that signed?
No.
I mean, I don't even think it'll be that high, even if it was signed by the entire group of creators.
All right. I mean, I tell you what. Let's do something a little bit different with this. Just give me 2 seconds, please.
Sweet. We're gonna type an email to Go Collect. Be like,
yeah, I'm gonna say, yeah. What do you do?
WTF? NHL Super Pro.
Amazed they didn't do this with NFL book, NBA books and stuff like that. Where am I? There we are. Right. So there you go. You can see I'm looking at the right one. NFL Super Pro from October 1991. As you scroll down, check the prices. $95, $75, $55. Crazy.
Wow.
You know?
I could buy 13 sets of Triumph.
You could find 13 copies of Triumph, never mind anything else.
No kidding. Wow.
So, you know, it's like I do my research, guys. You know what I'm saying?
That's a shocker. That is a shocker.
Yeah, I think of any of the price points you've ever mentioned on this show, that one has definitely shocked me the most, without a doubt. I was not expecting that.
I'm going. Hey, we should get Lucas from No Prize Podcast on here to do the spec on it. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. He went from sacking quarterbacks to tackling crime. Boom.
God.
Are you ready for some football? This is. I've read this book. This is the first time I read it because I passed massively when it first came out, and we looked at Miss Marvel a couple of weeks ago, didn't we?
We did.
Miss Marvel is a masterpiece compared to this.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I don't get the NFL connection. All it says is at one point he used to play football. He got injured. Then he had some crazy chemical spillage.
Yeah.
That
And the NFL logo there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the NFL in this case really stands for, like, this wasn't really. It was not for love. It was not done for love.
But I don't know. Chemical spillage turns him into a superhero. He wears some new football armor, which looks like nothing like any footballer would ever wear in a million years. And then for some reason, he decides to go and fight crime. Cheesy Spider-Man face versus NFL pro face. But other than that, this book is instantly forgettable. Even the Spider-Man's terrible.
Oh yeah.
It's just the writing's awful, and I don't need to say that because I like Fabian Nicieza. I've loved like a whole chunk of his stuff. But it's like when they see Spider-Man for the first time, it says something about being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, even if I'm in La La Land and not New York. And you're like, oh, right, okay, fine. It's just, no. I don't know who this book's aimed at. I know there was a trading card series where they did NFL players in like super robotic armor. For example, Dan Marino had like big like War Machine turrets on his shoulders that would fire footballs at people. Eric Dickerson was wrapped up in body armor, but that was just the way he played because he's a pussy. So that trading card series was going on. I'm assuming it's around about the same time. So I suppose there's the link. But no, I don't get it. I looked at this book and I expected some sort of like, some synergy. You can't call it NFL Super Pro if there's no football in it.
Well, that's if you go to the first page where they do the kind of the blurb at the top where it was like, you can't really read it on that, but it says now it's his job to protect the sport he loves. So he's actually his motivation is to actually protect the NFL.
How?
Right?
Arrange a CBA? Stop the strike?
I don't even know what his powers are.
Bring the scabs back.
Like, yeah, but other than wearing a souped up costume, right? Does he have any other powers other than that?
Yeah, it's Will.
They explain it.
It's right here. It's
strength and endurance.
A lifetime chemical combination gave me enhanced athletic ability, strength, and endurance.
So he's Captain America.
Yeah, pretty
with
much.
football. With football.
Well, the page with the synopsis on the top, where as a result of a fantastic accident, I never recall an accident that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just like, this thing lasted for 12 issues. 12 issues. 12.
So here's the thing, and this is my argument to relaunch Super Pro in today's society, is if his job is to protect football, you need to have him come back with his super suit, and he needs to go after
Bill Belichick.
Tom Brady.
Go after Tom Brady for being tampered with or something like that, or who's the quarterback for the Browns now?
Spygate.
Oh yeah, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson for supposedly raping 20 women,
allegedly
like that.
Well, you know what? I think you can pretty much say yes because he settled out of court, right?
Most of them settled.
So
but you have him go like beat the crap out of like Ray Rice. This is how we won't suspend you. You just have to be in the Super Pro comic book for. I think that would probably sell some issues. I think, don't you think?
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Have all the profits go to some legal defense fund for victims.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Yeah, there we go.
That certainly.
Done.
Let's do it. Let's petition Marvel right now. Get Don McGregor on the phone. He can write the damn thing. Get Don on.
Oh my God, that would be fantastic. There we go.
Yeah, and then his Super Pro sidekick would be a lawyer, just ready.
His agent. It'll be his agent. There we go.
Super Pro and Jay Maguire take on the NFL. Right.
Update his costume so that his helmet will be 3 times the size of his head to protect us from concussions. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that we made a bad book already. We should do this. We should do this for a living. Did anybody read this other than me?
Yeah.
I read the first issue.
That's all I asked.
Then that's all I got through the first issue.
Then you called a timeout.
One of the things in the story too, with John Mortague or whatever his name is, or Mordaw, on the second page, he holds up a card with a 13 on it. Listen, you're gonna get assassinated if you're trying to impersonate me. So Here's the example. Okay, NFL Super Pro will not save you. Don't try to be impersonating me out there. Thank you.
It's funny that the assassin knew exactly who he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so did Spider-Man, right? So it's like he got
yeah,
on the Spider-Man page and he was like, "Hey, I've heard good things about this Super Pro."
Yeah.
Like,
One thing
no,
I
yeah.
want to mention something here, right?
go
Because
on.
we've seen launches of new characters and ideas and new series and what have you. How many times has Spider-Man or even Batman or Superman for that matter been used to launch a new book?
Oh,
You know,
shed loads.
a ton. Throughout the show, we've reviewed issue ones or
Hmm.
the debut of new characters where just somehow there's a cameo
Hmm.
of Spider-Man hanging in there. Like when we spoke about Ms. Marvel, the Spider-Man was all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But here's Spider-Man again. And even with his presence here, it was not good enough. And on the subject of the art, the only Spider-Man art that makes sense is on the cover.
Yeah.
That's a typical, almost Gene Colan-esque Spider-Man swinging pose.
Mhm.
But throughout the issue, it's everywhere. It's almost as if they copied and pasted a drawn Spider-Man and just angled him enough to fit him in the panel.
Yeah.
It
I
didn't
mean,
matter if it made sense or not.
that arm, for example, what's he going? He's holding his rope and he's got something tied around his wrist. He's like holding his web. What's going on there? His elbow's bent at some queer angle. Oh, well done, Spidey. Well
You know,
done.
and we hate. I don't like bashing on creators and things like that, or books for that matter. But this has to be one of the worst books of all time, hands down. At least top 10, if not the whole series, because it just. What was the purpose of this?
I have no idea. Um, let's
Well,
see.
I think you probably have to look and see what kind of state the NFL was at this point in time, where they were willing to license out and like a promotional type book,
Hmm.
because I mean you can't just put NFL on anything, right? So this was
Mm,
something that the NFL. Who did Marvel go to the NFL and ask, or did the NFL go to Marvel and say, uh, please promote our product?
I mean,
all right. Okay.
did he write this to get tickets to a game? I
Well,
mean, the
fair
hell's going
enough.
on?
All right. Okay. So you've hit the nail on the head here. According to Wikipedia. All right. And this I'm citing the source, so we all know what Wikipedia is like. So I'm not taking it as gospel. But there's a paragraph halfway down the page that says reception. NFL Super Pro has been called one of the worst comics in recent Marvel Comics history, becoming a cult object. Often cited in this claim are issues with the plot and the characters. For example, in the first issue, a group of thieves incinerate valuable NFL merchandise, but it's never explained why they burn it instead of selling it off.
Idiots.
Uh, Writer Fabian Nicieza has admitted he wrote the story to gain free NFL tickets.
Boom. There it is.
There you
He
go.
stated that he still receives flack for the comic. Nicieza left Superpro after 4 issues and replaced by Buzz Dixon. One of Dixon's issues, which featured Hoppy villains, whoever they are, who used Kachina-themed costumes and weapons, drew substantial complaints from Hoppy representatives, leading to Marvel to officially recall the comic. Dixon left Superpro after 3 issues. Allegedly in 2005, Chicago Sports Review called it perhaps the worst comic book ever created. And the states, the sites that have the sources for the saying he wrote it for free tickets are 25 years ago, the NFL and Marvel Comics book by Alex Wong, Happy Thanksgiving from NFL by Chris Sims, and How Ridiculous Superheroes Got Their Jobs by Syriac Lamar. All right, there you go. So there's all the official sources, at least
I just
according
want
to
to say, 17 years later with the Chicago Sports Review, I agree. Thoroughly
Oh
agree.
dear good, dear God, dear
Yeah, but
God.
why if you're doing this to get tickets or whatever, but how I wish I could be a fly on the wall for that talk with Marvel to say, hey, can we do this? Sure. Let's use the Marvel name. Put it on a cover. Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. People will buy it because of the name. It's Marvel. Spider-Man's in it. Don't worry about it. You'll be on the cover. People love
That
Spider-Man. They'll pick it up.
I find. Do you know
or
what? Sorry, Professor. If I may interject,
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
find it odd that somebody decided that you know what geeks would buy comics about sport jocks, and how many sport jocks are going to go into a comic book shop to buy a comic about a sports jock?
Not unless
And
if
the
it
other
was
thing,
about
like-
them.
The geeks and the
And-
jocks don't meet, man.
so he can wear the NFL logo, but they don't mention any of the 32 teams at all.
Was it
So
28 back then?
well, it might have been even so. Okay, 28. So they don't mention any of the 28 teams at all. They don't appear anywhere. You would think that if you were going to have some guy as NFL Super Pro, don't you think that they might have like some kind of a super villain like the Bear or something, or you know the Dolphin.
Hey,
You know, hey, I'm just saying. But you know, you think that they would do some kind of rogues gallery of teams of like do some kind of team based rogues gallery. Right?
yeah. Can you imagine like the bad guys being people like Howie Long and Lawrence Taylor?
Yeah,
The Buccaneer, yeah. Come on, the Buccaneer.
The steel curtain. He's done now.
Yeah. The purple people eaters.
Yeah.
Come on, we've just created a rogues gallery for the Super Pro, and come on, hire us, Marvel.
Yeah,
please.
I expect the royalties to come flooding through the door.
We could make. Come on, with our football knowledge and our superhero knowledge, we can't fail.
Right. There you go. That's a new project for the Ol'Timers. Yes.
Is there hope for blending football and comics? Because NFL Super Pro ruined that.
Hey, it's been a long time, but people have long memories. I do get that, but
I don't see. I go back to my idea that I get there's crossovers in comic books, like media crossovers, like video games to comic books, movies to comic books, books to comic books. I get it. I can see that happening. Sports to comic books. I mean, part of the attraction of sports is that it's live. You're there when it happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I don't know.
You could even bring back Bubba Smith, who played Hightower in Police Academy, a former NFL player. Get him in here.
See, I would have Frank
Mr.
Gifford.
T.
I'd have Frank Gifford as the guy in the shadows controlling Super Pro.
Dwayne Johnson played football.
And we all know that Tom Brady is the closest thing to a real life superhero that we're ever going to get to.
Villain.
No, he's a goat. He's a goat. Boo.
Villain.
That would be the villain, the Patriot. He will do anything he wants to get his way.
Yeah, and his main tools are cameras.
His main tools will be these great big brass knuckles for Super Bowl rings that he bashes you with.
There you go.
I'll throw a deflated football at your face, and the football wrap around your head.
He could be like the Mandarin, with each ring has a different power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And each one cheats in some way.
Yeah. You're saying this, not
I know.
me.
I know.
Love it.
I know. If he was going to be a super villain, of course he would cheat. No.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not touching that line.
I'll take it. I already got the script going.
There you go. All right, perfect. All right, guys, there you go. 3 up, 3 down. 3 of the most obscure comic books you are never going to find in a bargain bin.
Nor would you want to.
You know what? I want to see this show 13 years from now, so we could all say, "What the hell were we thinking?"
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'm banning the professor from coming up with ideas. But no, it's been a good show. It's been a fun show, to be fair. It's interesting talking about some of the backgrounds to how comics kind of get made, like the scalping tickets and the creators involved. These aren't, for the most part, some of these are really big comic creators. I mean, Triumph, Mark Waid, Christopher Priest, Howard Porter's in there. All those kind of things that congregate. It just goes to prove that even with the best creators that you've got, you're still not guaranteed success. And therefore, if anyone ever complains why new characters don't do so well, this episode is showing you that, hey, new characters generally don't do so well when you've got such a great big group as, you've got to be something really special to break into the Supermans, the Batmans, the Captain Americas, the Spider-Mans of the comic book world.
Some characters take decades to evolve to a point where they start to get recognized or take off.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's more recent than not. But do you remember how Jessica Cruz was the best thing out of Rebirth, and now
Yeah.
you can't get her for any. She's practically disappeared.
Yeah.
You know, Power Girl's not around anymore. So yeah,
That's what happens.
I'm sure there's a whole bunch of Marvel characters that well, unless you count Jack O'Hart, who's
I mean, we
come
said
back
in the
every other-
last show, look at Hawkeye.
Yeah,
Hawkeye's been around, and now all of a sudden he's a household name.
yeah. Took a while for that brand recognition.
Yeah,
All right, Professor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate it.
Excellent. And 13th.
I'm glad we could triumph, sir.
On that note, I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes, and we'll see you all again in a fortnight with some more old-timer books. I did it right? Okay. Don't forget to check out UCPM for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
The No Prize Podcast, all about the MCU, Disney Plus, and hey, we talk about some comics too.
Yeah. That segment's getting smaller and smaller.
That's true.
Disclaimer on the bottom of that: we do
Yeah.
not talk about NFL Super Pro.
Yes. And of course, you've got TDC, which is the DC version, the Definitive Crusades, for all your DC news, views, bad news, and comic books all rolled into one. Okay. Gents, thanks very much. Till next
Thank you.
time.
Hasta la vista.
Adios.